This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. We have a banger today. Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press is going to jump on after we hear from Coach Scott Arniel and a little bit of Dylan DeMelo as well, as the Jets are back on the practice ice, getting ready for a very big weekend at Canada Life Centre. Friday night, Hellebuyck night. The Vezina Trophy is going to be in the building. Heli pennant to the first 5,000 fans, and a little bit of a celebration of our two-time Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, who's also 3-0 on the season. And then Sunday afternoon, our first Winnipeg Sports Talk game of the year. The Pittsburgh Penguins are in town. Sidney Crosby, Rutger McGroarty. Hopefully he'll be in the lineup and we can give him that special Winnipeg welcome everyone's so excited to give. If you haven't already, grab your tickets. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST and join us in the Winnipeg Sports Talk section up in 316. Cannot wait to see everybody on Sunday afternoon. We'll have an early entry to get in and join the gang at the bar outside of section 316 beforehand. Your ticket will come with a beverage as well, which you can utilize right there in the bar. Should be a great, great Sunday afternoon with the Canadian hockey legend and probably the least popular player in today's NHL coming to Winnipeg, at least for Jet fans, in former Jet number one pick, Rutger McGroarty. So looking forward to all of that. That is the 20th. And by the way, while we're at it, just before we get in, a little bit of a business to attend to. Mark it down. I told you we'd confirm it this week. It is confirmed. Lock it in 2 weeks today. October 30th. Boston Pizza, Polo Park, WST, watch party, Jets, Red Wings, with our friends at BP and our friends at Little Brown Jug. Was actually just down at Boston Pizza, Polo Park this morning, doing a bit of a video with some of our friends at Little Brown Jug to kick it off. At Little Brown Jug now available at select Boston Pizzas, including BP Polo Park. So we'll be watching the game. We'll have it on all the screens with big sound. We'll do some fun Jets trivia games and a few contests and intermissions and a few TV timeouts. Have some prizing and contests. So mark it down. Join us. 6:30 p.m. The puck drops Wednesday, October 30th at BP Polo Park. We're going to talk a little NFL with Jeff Fineberg today. We're also going to talk about a big weekend for the Manitoba Moose. And you look at just the box scores, Nikita Chibrikov, Elias Salmonson, Brad Lambert, all those names we talked about through training camp. A great opening weekend for the Moose. They're 2-0. The Fink's going to join us later on today on the program. And as I mentioned, we'll chop up a little NFL news with my guy Jeff Fineberg as well. So it should be a real fun one. Great to have you with us. If you're with us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up and make sure you've hit that subscribe button already. And if you're listening on the podcast, pop by and check out the YouTube sometime. We'd love to have you join us live when you are able to. And you can hit that thumbs up button and subscribe when you get there as well. CFL 110. Following WST today with myself and Jeff Hamilton. So we got a long afternoon. It's going to be a fun one. Make sure to stick around for that. It's brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank our great sponsors at Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, fansfirst.ca, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, of course, the folks over at Royal Sports, the Winnipeg Jets, and we will get to a why not question of the day for the folks at Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGilvery. All right, let's get this going. Welcome to everybody in chat. and welcome to you, Michael Remis. What is going on?
Feeling good, Huss. Interesting scheduling here for the Jets with the Friday game and the Sunday. Now they have the whole week off and don't play again until Friday, but certainly will be a great weekend. As you mentioned, Hellebuyck night Friday. I saw Chuck Hellebuyck tweeting that he has arrived in Winnipeg for that game. And, man, two-time Vezina winning goalie being honored. How special is that? The Vezina Trophy and Jennings Trophy here in Winnipeg. And Sunday, as you mentioned, Rutger McGroarty coming to town. But also, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, two legends of the game. And we're going to enjoy watching them while we still can, but also want to see the Jets improve on that 3-0 start. And that's what they're trying to do this week, Huss, as get to practice, get to fine-tune some points in their game as we head in to Friday. But there are a number of games on last night. NHL in full swing. We had a lot of NFL news as well. I'm excited to hear you and Fineberg chop that one up later on in the show. But feeling good, Huss. Feeling good.
Well, and you know what? Let's just quickly get to last night in the NHL because it was a busy Tuesday. The Oilers. We were texting last night. I was out and I got home pretty late, but the game was still on, and it was 3-2 Philly. I'm like, this is perfect. There's 4 minutes left in this game. The Flyers are up 3-2, finish the job, and then we go to EST and listen to Tom Gazzola deal with the 0-4 start. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. The big boys to the rescue. Oilers tie it up. Draisaitl from McDavid and OT. Oilers get their first win of the season over Philadelphia. Impressed with Philly, though, man. This team plays hard. And it was cool to see Matvei Michkov, the young Russian, one of the preseason favorites to win the Calder Trophy, pop his first 2 goals, probably first 2 of many in the National Hockey League. And the Flyers just fallen short, but still get a point in a tough place to play against the Edmonton Oilers. But how about the Calgary Flames, Reem? They were favored last night to beat the Blackhawks. They got it done. The Flames now 4-0 on the season, tied with the Dallas Stars, who needed a shootout to beat the San Jose Sharks last night for a top spot in the Western Conference right now.
Yeah, looking at the standings, the Flames, they are off to a very strong start. Didn't see that one happening, but hey, there's the Jets 3-0, looking pretty good. I watched that Oilers game. I was hoping for a loss. I had so many flashbacks to last year when we thought they were for sure missing the playoffs, had to fire the coach. I was like, oh, yes, here they're going to lose. But they were able to come back, very strong with Bouchard, McDavid, passing it around, scoring the tying goal, and then winning in overtime. It's got to be tough for goalie Urson, where you got McDavid on a breakaway. No one's back. And then here comes Draisaitl as well, all alone. So not easy there for the Flyers. I think they were pretty upset about losing that one, but hey, Dallas won yesterday. Easy game for them against San Jose, but they're the Jets behind. Minnesota's got 2 overtime losses. They won yesterday against St. Louis, so Jets.
You know who didn't win yesterday? The off-season champions,
Nashville.
We raised the banner. They haven't raised any wins yet, though. The Preds get lit up by the Seattle Kraken 7-3 at home. And listen, there's still so much talent in this Nashville team. I'm not for a minute suggesting that they're not going to be in the mix in the playoffs and, a team that's right in the mix in the Central Division. But, I mean, these starts are important. And, while teams like the Jets have, taken advantage and, banked their points so far, an 0-3 start for the Preds. And, it's one thing, to lose against top quality opposition. I mean, they lost their opener 4-3 to the Dallas Stars. But you get shut out against the Red Wings and then come back home and get lit up. UC Saros allowing 6 last night to the Seattle Kraken. It does seem like this Nashville team with, all the money they spent on Brady Shea, on Marchessault, on Steven Stamkos, still a little bit of a work in progress early on in the season.
Yeah, I think we We had said that before the start of the season. You look at Nashville's projections, similar to the Jets and other people in the chat thinking they were way improved. But we also said, hey, off-season champions, it takes a while for things to gel. We anointed Ottawa off-season champions several years ago. We're still waiting for them to get into the playoffs. Dallas was off-season champions, I remember years ago, and it took them a couple years before they got to the Cup final that year, thanks to Joel Kiviranta. And Nashville was the clear off-season champions, and it takes a bit, and it's fun to, we'll see. It's an 82-game season, but I agree these games still count and may take them a while. And you're looking at, hey, surprising starts, not surprising starts. Nashville not having a win, having a -8 goal differential, surprising. Same with Colorado, 0-3, -10 goal differential. And some of the concerns that we talked about going into their playoff series with the Jets last year, hey, they don't really have that great forward depth. I think that's certainly showing, and their top players aren't running everyone over like they did against the Jets in that playoff series.
Well, the guy that ran the Jets over is still on a 6-month suspension.
Well, that too.
In Nichushkin, who hasn't been there. I mean, Colorado right now is a one-line team with goalies that can't make a save.
Yeah,
and that's a tough spot to be in. And they've got Boston tonight. Certainly no pushover coming in to Ball Arena in Denver as the Avalanche try to do what the Oilers did last night and break a 3-game losing streak to start the season and get off the schneid.
Yeah, and they're missing, Landeskog, Nichushkin, Druin's been hurt. I think Lehkonen as well, banged up. So, they don't have their full roster, but it's going to happen. Injuries, they're just dealing with a number of them now, and I am looking forward to seeing that game tonight. Nice schedule tonight has Sabres, Penguins, Kings, who just had that crazy game against Ottawa in Toronto. I think it's Big Save Dave getting the start for the Kings as Darcy Kemper's got some personal stuff I think he's dealing with, and Utah continues against the Ducks. So nice 4-game slate. Had a ton of games yesterday, and the Jets kind of just sitting back here waiting, practicing optional practice today before Friday. It seems like a big event this weekend for the Jets. The 2 millionth fan coming in, Hellebuyck night, Brian Little night. So a lot of festivities here on this Friday-Sunday schedule.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to the weekend, both games, and particularly seeing our friends from the chat and our podcast listeners. All are welcome. Grab your family, grab your friends. It's the beauty of the way we're doing it this year with the game of the month. You don't necessarily need to commit to all 6 games, although we'd love to see it all 6. And, depending on you and your crew's availability, you can bring a few more people if they're looking to go to the game. So, yeah. WinnipegJets.com/WST. Get on that and join us on Sunday, I should say. Listen, we are sort of burying the lead because we got into all of the action on the ice. The most poignant moment from last night in the National Hockey League, without a doubt, was the beginning of the Panthers-Blue Jackets game. And I got to give credit to, the Blue Jackets organization, but that entire team, the Florida Panthers as well. Remo, if for folks that missed it, they started the game without a left winger for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And they dropped the puck and let the clock run 13 seconds before then truly starting the game. And you heard the fans in Columbus chanting Johnny Hockey. And then a big ovation when the game did get going. But, listen, there's been so many moments after the tragic passing of Johnny and his brother Matthew in August. We knew that this first game in Columbus was going to be a very, very heavy one. And listen, I think that whole team this entire year is probably going to be playing with heavy hearts. But, to start off the season at home in that fashion, where a guy that was such a massive part of their team was expected to be, and then suddenly and tragically taken away. You knew that it was going to be a very, very, a moment that people would remember for a long time. And I have to say, it was a very touching tribute to a guy that was so popular in Columbus and Calgary, and really with hockey fans around the world.
Yeah, really well done. Very emotional, and it's honestly still hard to believe that this tragedy happened in the summer, and he's no longer a member of the Blue Jackets, but having, the vacant left wing for Sean Monahan, who played with him in Calgary and were such good friends, and was the reason, one of the reasons why he signed there. And then Monahan scoring in the game. Just what a moment it was, and incredibly sad. The Gaudreau family there. I mean, his dad was skating with them in the practice this week. He participated in the Flyers practice as well. Just what a horrible tragedy for these two brothers and family. Just makes you sick thinking about what happened. But very, very nice tribute last night in Columbus.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, Johnny's never going to be forgotten, particularly in Columbus and in Calgary. And, this entire season, at least to begin with, has, a little bit of a dark cloud around it, with everything that happened. But the game, the league, those teams move on with Johnny in their thoughts. One thing, I know you said 2 millionth fan.
It was 20, yeah.
Actually, the 20 millionth guest is going to be welcomed in to the arena on Friday night. And they're going to be celebrating the occasion by awarding an exciting prize to the lucky fan who scans into the arena as the 20 millionth guest at the game on Friday night, which is the Hellebuyck night. There's going to be a Winnipeg Jets VIP experience, a $1,000 credit to be used at Jets gear and Canada Life Centre concessions. Oh, I could use that. And 2 tickets to a Canada Life Centre concert or game of choice, and a one-of-a-kind 20 millionth fan Winnipeg Jets jersey. And of course, this milestone comes during the 20th anniversary of Canada Life Centre. And don't forget, as I mentioned before, the first 5,000 fans get that limited edition Hellebuyck pennant, and fans will have a chance to see the trophies up close and take photos. So Jets back on the practice rink today. We did get some clarity. We'll hear from Coach Scott Arniel. But Jared Anderson-Dolan has a broken foot. So, he is not close to coming back. Still waiting to see Comrie. Still waiting to see Dylan Coghlan. Still waiting on David Gustafsson as well after the 3-0 start. And, of course, Logan Stanley was back at practice yesterday, Remo, in the non-contact jersey. It sounds like he's going to need to skate for a while, a week plus, before he's actually in the full contact jersey and eligible or available to play. So I don't think we'll see Stan this weekend, but I guess there's a potential that we may see him on the road trip next week before the team comes back home to take on the Leafs on that Amazon Monday night in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm curious when they start mixing these guys in. Haven't seen Gus Bus, Dylan Coghlan. What about Eric Comrie? Hellebuyck can't play every game. The schedule getting a bit heavy next week, Huss, with Pittsburgh at home, then on the road, St. Louis, Seattle, Calgary. Maybe that Seattle game would be one to get Comrie in. We'll wait and see. Or they just ride Hellebuyck. Again, they have all these days off here, 4 days off in between games, so I don't think there's been a reason here not to rest him. But that's something to watch. Hellebuyck's workload throughout the season. With the Four Nations Cup coming, he could play in, potentially more games than previous, and you want him to be fresh for the playoffs. So I think, the workload, we're always keeping an eye, Huss, on the workload, as it is kind of unprecedented as well, the number of games that he plays in today's NHL.
Well, I mean, you know me. I say Hellebuyck's built different. He can play. He likes to play a lot. And with the way that he's playing, how do you not have him in the net? I actually, let's just say the Jets win these games on the weekend, and then they're heading out on the road, and Hellebuyck is just winning every night and playing. I mean, is there a temptation just to keep on letting him go until he loses at some point?
Yes.
I have that. I mean, at this point of the season, I mean, if you can start off with a nice winning streak right out of the gate, it puts you in such a good spot for the rest of the season. And then potentially the ability to rest him a little bit later on. Listen, he's starting on Friday night for Hellebuyck night. And I'd be stunned if he didn't start on Sunday afternoon against the Pittsburgh Penguins. He is, after all, Mr. Matinee. Dominates the afternoon games, and he's just looked so good so far this season. So, I mean, we'll find out, obviously, on the weekend whether he gets both of the games. But he's already breaking out the Heritage equipment. He's got a new look mask and pads, gloves, blocker for the Heritage unis that they're going to be wearing on, I believe, Friday night for the Hellebuyck night. So that is going to be a real fun one. Let's hear from Scott Arniel. Because listen, we kind of went over this yesterday. It's been a great start in the standings. There's been some real nice improvements come the power play from the PK. They've done some special things late in the game. They've won in overtime. One thing that hasn't really come is the production at 5-on-5, which is a massive part of the game. Scott Arniel talked about looking to make improvements to their game and what he'll be focusing in on practice this week heading into Friday night.
There's lots that especially early on the year that you're trying to, instill in the guys to continue to work on, and that's one thing this week we get to do some of that, back to some teaching, and but at the end of the day, you can't criticize wins. You have to find a way to get 2 points, and there's always you can win a game 6-0 and still have things that you want to work on. So there's lots of good things that happen, lots of positive stuff. We'll take care of some of the other things, but starting Friday, I think we go on a 22, 23-day stretch where we got 11 games. We're going every other night. This is really now because of that the Four Nations Cup. This is where it's really going to get busy here for the stretch.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel talking about the schedule, and as Michael alluded to earlier on, it is sort of weird that we're going from Sunday to Friday with no games. That's about it for the schedule, though. I mean, we won't have long stretches without games moving forward because of that break midseason for the Four Nations Cup. But here's Arniel just talking about what he thought of the defensive play of his club against the Wild.
I think we caught a team a little bit, obviously tired coming in, playing the night before, but at the same time, it's part of what we've stressed as a group the last couple of years. But, I really like to make sure that our defense are being a part of the offense. When the other team has 5 guys packed in defensively, if you're not having your D mobile, if you're not having them, getting to open ice, getting the spots, it doesn't help our 3 forwards. So we like to use our D, whether that's for the initial shot or if it's to spread out the opposition. I think that's something that we like to work on, and whether it's jumping in the rush or it's jumping in the cycle, that's part of what they're asked to do every night.
All right, so a little bit more from the coach. Now, as we alluded to at the beginning, Logan Stanley injured during the preseason, had some surgery, not a long-term injury, but certainly kind of characterizes week to week to begin the season. Big Stan was back on the ice yesterday, and Arnie discussed his return and his timeline for the Winnipeg Jets.
This will be more about conditioning and feel. He kind of snuck into a couple of 5-on-5 drills that he wasn't supposed to today, but he's too big of a target that I think everybody knew where he was all the time. So, but he's that's the first day, and we don't know tomorrow. He might be stiff, sore, but we'll just keep going day to day here. Nothing this weekend, obviously, but we'll push this and see how he goes. He'll get his, like I said, his timing needs to get there. His conditioning also has to get there.
Looked like he was moving pretty well, though, considering he had knee surgery.
Yeah, he's been on the ice by himself with Wolfie a few days here, so he's been skating. So it wasn't wasn't unexpected that he'd start to feel a little bit better. I think that he's been talking that his mobility, even his just walking, is feeling a lot better. So that's great to hear.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel on Stan, and Reem, when he is available to come back into the lineup, I'm sure he'll get an opportunity to play. It does create a pretty big weekend for Hayden Fleury, I would say. From my opinion, has looked really good. Very steady with Colin Miller on that third pairing right now. And, these 2 games, huge chance for Fleury to continue to earn trust of the coaching staff and try and make the case that he is the best option in the 6th hole, even when Logan Stanley comes back. Although, as Arnie said, with the amount of games that they're playing, they will be looking to get Dylan Coughlin, David Gustafson, and even Eric Comrie in the lineup at some point relatively soon.
Yeah, I think Hayden Fleury's played well, and you look at the Jets' goals against, they keep winning. Like, I don't think you're rushing to make changes right away, and I don't even know if Stan had that spot, completely locked up before the injury. So, let him take his time getting back, make sure he's 100%, and, reevaluate then, to see how it's going. I mean, if he's coming, let's say, okay, he's ready to come in the lineup now. Are you putting him in Friday against San Jose? Maybe because it's San Jose and you want to give him, an opponent that isn't, one of the top teams in the league. But I don't think there's been any reason here to make changes with the 3-0 start. And, how many goals against do they have? 2? The penalty kills been perfect as well. Things are going pretty good. Maybe you'd like to see some more goals at 5-on-5, or not have to, scrape back with a minute left against Chicago. But you can't be upset being 3-0 here with a goal differential of whatever it is, 9 or 10. So I think they're in a good spot here.
Well, you know what? Speaking of the PK, Dylan DeMelo spoke as well. Hey, here's what DeMelo had to say about the perfect PK to start the season.
I think, the result is nice, but I think it looks good too. I think we're doing a good job with sticks. We're doing a good job with pressure. Doing a good job off entries. Trying not to allow any easy entries, and obviously goaltending's been fantastic when we've had breakdowns. So it's looking pretty good right now. It's obviously still very early. We have to continue to work at it and make sure that we're sharp with it. But it's a big part of the game, and a huge kill at the the end of last game there that kind of helped us get to overtime, and then our other end of it, the power play, got the job done.
All right, so there's Dylan DeMelo. And I mean, today, and we're going to talk to Mike right away, today was an optional practice, and most of the players opted to work out off of the ice. But DeMelo talked about just getting a couple days off after a nice 3-0 start to the year.
Once you get going, you kind of want to keep playing. Be nice if the schedule makers could throw a game in on a Tuesday, Wednesday here for us. But, it's going to be, it's an opportunity, obviously, for us to utilize this time to maybe iron some things out that we can improve on in the past 3 games there. The ability to get a little bit of rest here because we're going to be going here. So, I mean, it's going to be an absolute grind. I think after our homestand here, we hit all 4 time zones in an 8-day span, and, we're playing every other night for 20-something days. So, opportunity to get some rest, maybe get a couple good lifts in, some good practices in, because that's going to be something that's going to be absent going forward. It's going to be, game travel, rest, and just kind of roll with it the way we can.
Yeah, I think Dylan's feeling like a lot of the fans were. Would have loved the game yesterday or tonight, but we'll wait until Friday. And wow, 4 time zones in 8 days. Somewhere Paul Maurice was smiling with the time zone reference for sure. Hey, listen, Mike McIntyre is going to join us right away. Don't forget, his colleague, Jeff Hamilton of the Freep, and myself will fire up CFL 110 after today's show. Stick around for that and check it out on the podcast if you're listening on the pod. It's brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Do want to thank our great friends at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family-owned and operated for 60 years. As we saw yesterday, one of our most loyal listeners, Dallas, ended up with the Rolly's truck at his former place yesterday, making a move. What Dallas did is what you can do. If you're planning a move, get on over to Rollies.com. You can check out their website, beautiful. It tells you all about the history of it, all of their services. But in that top right corner, click that request an estimate tag and pop in WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what you need to move. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly and get you a very competitive estimate to give you and all of your precious belongings the Rollies white glove treatment on your way to your next destination. Family owned and operated for over 60 years, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. If you have a move, make it Rollies. Find out more or request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. Have to thank our friends at Consolidated Supply for their continued support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Consolidated Supply It's been with us for years, and they've been such a big part of the golf industry for years. Part of the reason why they're the specialists in irrigation systems and solutions, but also things like artificial turf. If you want that dream putting green in the backyard or potentially even indoors. And of course, new and used golf carts and all sorts of club car vehicles is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba. But Consolidated Supply has other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. Not to mention, they are the local leaders in small engine parts and repair, and of course have the full line of Crest power tools as well that you can check out. Best bet for you is to pop by and see them at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or you can find out more online at cte.ca. And listen, I know that the crowd's going to be charged up for the Jets back at home on the weekend. If you need to charge for pretty much anything when it comes to batteries, you got to go check out our friends at manitobabattery.com, the original location on Logan Avenue, and of course, their brand new location, which they had the grand opening for on Saturday down on the south side of the city on Dovercourt Drive. Regardless of which location you go to, you'll be shopping local and you'll be getting the best prices in town, period, on batteries, beating the pants off the big box stores. And the other thing that the big box stores can provide you is the best service in town. Donnie and his staff will be happy to take care of you in person, but we know you're busy. They can also handle all of your battery orders and deliver them to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. So pop in on Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive, give them a call, or order today for all your battery needs from your local leader, Manitoba Battery, at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in here for the latest on the Winnipeg Jet. Mike, nice to catch up last night. A good time. And, vibes are good around the Winnipeg Jets as we get into this weekend. And what a big weekend it is coming up. And we spent a good portion of the first little bit talking about it. Connor Hellebuyck, there are times where you almost take for granted just how incredible he has been. Jet fans are going to get a chance to celebrate that, another Vezina trophy, and a big opportunity for the Jets to crank their record up to 4-0 before the Pittsburgh Penguins, led by Sidney Crosby, come in on Sunday afternoon.
I don't think. One sec. We're not getting his audio.
Hold on a sec, Mike. We're not getting your audio. Hold on a second.
I think I got to do something here.
Remis has to do something.
Oh, wait. Give me 1 sec. Let me put him in.
Yeah, there we are. He just has to press some button so that we don't get the echo on it. But I do believe
good to go.
We are good to go. Perfect. Now. What's going on?
Yeah, Huss, I see world-renowned social media influencer Chuck Hellebuyck has touched down in Winnipeg earlier today via his social media account. So the Hellebuyck family will be in town on Friday night. I guess we can rule out Eric Comrie making his first start of the season on Friday, since I don't imagine the plan would be to have everybody here to celebrate Connor Hellebuyck and then have him take a seat for that game. But you're right. He does tend, I think, to get taken for granted a little bit in this market. 4 Vezina nominations, 2 Vezina victories, and second star of the week just in 1 week into the NHL season. And there's Connor Hellebuyck sporting the, .67 goals against and the save percentage north of 970. As much as no doubt the Jets would love those numbers to hold up through the whole season, I don't imagine that kind of performance is entirely sustainable. But I think what is sustainable is continued excellence from Connor Hellebuyck, and he looks ready to go. I mean, Huss, the Winnipeg Jets, True North, they invested, $59.5 million in each of Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck. Those contracts, $119 million combined in those 2 cornerstone players. And you could, I don't think it would even be really a debate that those 2 are leading the way. Connor Hellebuyck 3-0 with what he's done. And then there's Mark Scheifele, who's been in on the last 6 Winnipeg Jets goals. Remarkable. 6 of the 10 they've scored, including the past 6. And what a weekend Mark Scheifele just had, between goal number 299 and 300, game 800, the overtime dramatics, the crazy goal off the face-off, and he was feeling pretty thankful over the Thanksgiving weekend. So the Jets are being led by their stars and a supporting cast as well, which has been very impressive in the early going.
You know what? Let me hit you with the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray, and I will throw this to our chatters as well. How long would you keep playing Connor Hellebuyck if he just keeps on winning?
I would keep rolling with him. I mean, I don't think.
Remo, hold on a sec. Remo, we got something in the background there. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I don't think there's. I don't think rest. Is an issue. No, you're not overworking him this early in the season. I know you always want to keep an eye on the big picture. And Scott Arniel mentioned the other day, the 4 nations, and Connor Hellebuyck's not going to get the time off that, a lot of other goalies around the league obviously will. So you have to be aware of that. And Scott Arniel's right, and Dylan DeMelo as well, in talking about the schedule. Like, it's been a pretty slow start here with, ample time between games, extended time at home. But starting this Friday night, Huss, I think the math is correct. If I recall, it's 12 games in the next 23 nights. The Jets don't have more than one night between games until I think it's November 10th and 11th, so nearly a month, where they're at least playing every other day, and there's a couple back-to-backs in there. So I think at least through this homestand, I'm playing Connor Hellebuyck. I expect he's playing Friday and Sunday, but maybe you look to get Eric Comrie in on one of those games on the road trip next week, whether it's, Calgary or Seattle. I suspect you're starting Connor Hellebuyck probably in the divisional game against St. Louis. So, if I had to just kind of guess where you might work Eric Comrie in for his first start of the season, I would say probably one of those, either the Seattle or the Calgary game. But again, even then, you could keep riding Connor Hellebuyck in the early going here. I just know, Scott Arniel mentioned yesterday that he'd like to get all 3 guys that have yet to get in the lineup that are on the roster, Eric Comrie, Dylan Coghlan, and David Gustafson, into the lineup sooner than later. And so I do suspect here in the next week or so, Eric Comrie does get a start.
I haven't looked this up, but and again, these are always fun conversations to have with friends over a couple beers when your team is 3-0. And your goaltender's allowed 2 goals, both of which he probably hated and would like to have back, which is the hilarious part about it all. This could easily be better than the numbers as gaudy and incredible as they are. What's the record for a goaltender with consecutive wins to start a regular season? Wouldn't that be nice if that was a conversation that we were talking about quite a bit? We'll have to keep on winning to do that. But, when I look at this schedule, and you're right, once the puck drops on Friday night, and this is great for fans that missed it this week, the Jets are playing every second night for the better part of the next 3 weeks. So it'll be a game, it'll be a day off, sometimes travel, another game going forth. I mean, when I look at this schedule, I'm thinking likely that maybe that Seattle game on the road next Thursday. Yep. Then you'd come back with a Saturday game in Calgary, a quick trip back home for the Leaf game, which is, of course, the Amazon game on Monday night. He's definitely going to want that one. And then we go back to Michigan, where, of course, he's from. I have a feeling he wants that one, too.
Yeah.
Then you have to finish up the road trip, the Columbus Blue Jackets. I would imagine that, that team's going to probably see a lot of backup goalies this season. Yeah. And then you got a big homestand with the Lightning in the afternoon, Utah, Avalanche, Dallas. So they'll have to figure it out. Tampa and 3 big divisional opponents, and then the 2 days off, and then a tough road trip going out to see the Rangers, the Lightning, the Panthers. At some point they're going to go to the backup, but there's no back-to-backs at any point right now And the best possible thing for the Winnipeg Jets, and I would suggest Connor Hellebuyck for what he wants to achieve this year, is to just start on a heater and keep on going right now.
Yeah, for sure. And, we saw it in training camp. I think his 3 preseason games, like each one built off the last. And by that third game, Huss, especially that third period against the Wild, where the Jets were absolutely under siege. I think they were outshot 21-4. Sorry, against the Flames in that final preseason game. And the Jets were under siege, and Connor Hellebuyck was tremendous. And, I think when you look at how they planned out the preseason, I know he got shelled in that first game in Minnesota. Again, the Jets had an inferior lineup, but Connor Hellebuyck wanted to not play until then, and then obviously ramp it up. And it looks like they timed it out really well so that he could hit the regular season and, be in fine form. And, he's certainly led the way. As mentioned, the Jets are getting a lot of contributions, certainly from different places. But, your big stars, your big money players, look around any team in the league. They need to be your best. And so far, so very good for the Winnipeg Jets when it comes to the likes of Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele.
No questions about the goaltending right now with this team. The power plays look really good. The penalty kill has been perfect. They've scored clutch goals late. They've dominated in overtime. Everything's going great with the caveat of 5-on-5, which is actually a pretty big part of the game. I'll credit our pal Connor Rabchak for digging this up. And I think it even with the record and everything I just said, it is somewhat surprising that through the first week of the season, the Jets are in fact 32nd out of 32 teams and expected 5-on-5 goals per 60. That's obviously something they're going to want to work on, and I think they would expect that will improve. But what do you make of that, Mike? And how might that shape the way the coaches are approaching these next couple practice days as well as the weekend?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see that as well. I think that's, if I recall, that might have been Jay Fresh's model on, and I think it's the Jets are, I think, 1.92, which, as you mentioned, Huss, is dead last, and yet they're 3-0.
198. By the way, what's interesting about this is Boston is at 2.05. The next team is Ottawa at 207, who just put up 8 goals in a game. So. Again, 1 week of data on this might skew things a little bit, but I don't think there's any doubt that, the top 6 could certainly generate more at 5-on-5. And listen, I'm not talking at all about Adam Lowry's line. That line has not only scored, they have really been dominant. And even the fourth line has had moments. I mean, to me, we're talking about that top 6. And again, top 6, if you want to, we can have the semantics about who the second line is right now. I'm talking about Ehlers, Perfetti, and Vlad, and obviously Scheifele, Connor, and Gabe Vilardi at 5-on-5.
Yeah, and I think if there was one area that the Jets could definitely improve upon, it's that 5-on-5 play, specifically from, let's call them the top 2 scoring lines, not necessarily the top 2 ice time or deployment lines, but there's no question the Scheifele and Nemestikov, based on the centers, those 2 lines, they're the 2 lines being counted on to provide, a good chunk of the offense. And it just hasn't been there at 5-on-5. Now, as mentioned, the Jets power play, I believe, Huss, they're either tied or they might be alone in first right now with the power play. And I think it's the Jets and the Sharks, the 2 teams who will play Friday night. I believe they're the only 2 teams that are 100% right now on the PK. So you have the Jets at, I believe, number 1 by themselves on the power play and tied for number 1 on the penalty kill. And the 5-on-5 play, that was such a strength last year. Again, the Jets finished with 110 points, 4th overall, in spite of special teams that were in the bottom third of the league. And that's because the 5-on-5 play was carrying them. Kind of early in the season, it's almost the reverse a little bit. It's the special teams which have been dominant, the 5-on-5 room for improvement. And yesterday at practice, Huss, and I know today was an optional, so they they'll get back on the ice as a full group tomorrow. That's certainly a focus this week. Less special teams focus, which was a big part of training camp, and more trying to generate more at 5-on-5 through the neutral zone. Dylan DeMelo talked a lot about that yesterday. And, again, if you're looking for, I guess, positive signs with this team, it's that in spite of being 3-0, like there was Dylan DeMelo yesterday saying, we're not even close to being at our best. And I mean, that's kind of what you want to hear, right? Like that's better than, boy, are we ever lucky. Like we're flying by the seat of our pants here and we're pulling victories out of the jaws of defeat. They kind of did that on Friday night, certainly with the late game heroics there. And obviously 2 overtime wins, makes the record look a little different than it would be had they not pulled those games out. That being said, this is a team that I think has too much talent I don't expect they're going to stay 32nd for very long at, 5-on-5 offense being generated and expected goals. And the recent history would suggest, in fact, they should be among the better teams in the league because they just were a year ago and they have most of the same personnel back. One thing I think the Jets are doing extremely well, Huss, and if there were any worries that under a new head coach, they were maybe going to abandon the structure and the foundation, the identity, if you will, of this team, like pretty clearly they are still extremely focused on that defense first identity as proven by just the 2 goals against. And as you say, the 2 goals that have been scored by Ryan Donato and Jacob Middleton, those are shots you'd fully expect Connor Hellebuyck to stop. Like, if he makes those 2 saves, we might be talking about 3 shutouts out of the gate here, given how rock solid he's been in every other facet of the game and the players in front of him as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he made a number. I thought the saves that he made early in the Edmonton game.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't maybe 5 bell ones, but just, I mean, that's a hell of a team that knows how to score goals. And he made a couple that really steadied the club and allowed them the opportunity to get up in the game. And then to the Jets' credit, they never really looked back. And even in the third period, I mean, the game was over. Yeah. They were trying to make sure that, they weren't getting the grade A's, if you will, to stop the shutout. And then, yeah, I mean, the Donato goal and the Middleton goal, those are 1 in 100s on Hellebuyck. So, I mean, listen, it is a great start so far. Been nice on the blue line as well, I think. And listen, there's no pairing is under more focus than the number 2 spot. You know what you get from Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMelo on pretty much every night. Questions about how Dylan Samberg would be looking in a much more prominent position, playing on that second pair with Neil Pionk. And listen, huge questions about Pionk too. I mean, can he get back to the best of Pionk that we've seen at times in a contract year that's very important for him as well? Yep. I would suggest that early returns on that pairing, but especially Dylan Samberg, have been a real big boon to Winnipeg and bode well for their fortunes moving forward.
Well, you just see the confidence growing with Dylan Samberg, leaps and bounds, and there's look how much he's jumping into the play. Like that's something he didn't do nearly as much even a year ago. He's got the Jets have just the 1 goal from their blue line, and it was Dylan Samberg in that first game. He had another great chance. I think it was in Sunday's game, and I thought Sunday's game by far was the best game from that duo. Like they were really, really good, Samberg and Pionk. Neil Pionk again, and I liked a lot of what I saw in training camp from him. I think this is a player who's extremely motivated to put last year behind him in a number of ways and really get off to a good start. And I feel like he has. And, it's evident, Huss, just how much the Jets are trying to get their defensemen involved in the play. And look no further than the number of shot attempts on Sunday. I believe the final count was 35 from their 6 defensemen. That is an enormous number, like huge number. And I think 17 of those 35, it actually might have been 37 now that I think of it. Whatever the number, it was in the mid to upper 30s. that is just a whopping number, and it shows how much the defense, and Rick Bowness tried to talk about this a lot last year, and Scott Arniel has obviously reinforced it, having that fourth and fifth wave joining the rush, but not sacrificing, responsible play in your own end. And clearly the Jets have found a nice balance in the early going, because, you might think 35, 37 shot attempts means they're just abandoning ship in their own zone and getting caught, but they're not. And, that I look for that to continue. I think the Jets have the personnel, and, once they get like a Billy Heinola back, they will really have the personnel to activate. So I think we're seeing it from all three pairs. Like, I've really liked the Fleury and Miller pairing. I think they've been really solid. Josh Morrissey is off to a great start, as I think a lot of us expected. He's kind of just picked up where he's left off, offensively and defensively. And, the blue line has become a big part of this team's identity, and not just for its play in its own zone, which has been stellar, but for what it's creating through the neutral zone and even in the offensive zone at times.
Mike, as far as the forwards go, I mean, we mentioned the Lowry line leading the way right from game number one, the first period against Edmonton. I think the fourth line certainly had their moments as well. I mean, Rasmus Kupari's had a nice start. I mean, he's got David Gustafsson waiting to get into the lineup. We'll talk with Dan Fink later on about a great start for some young players on the Moose that are going to be continuing to, force management to consider their addition to the lineup. But like Nikolai Ehlers so far this season has certainly made an impact on the power play. He was the catalyst on the Mark Scheifele tying goal with the extra attacker on Friday. But it just hasn't seemed to click right now on that line with Perfetti and Vlad. What's missing right now from that unit, in your opinion?
Yeah, I go back and forth a little bit on what the biggest issue with that line is. And, I feel like I think you can suggest it's Perfetti to a degree, that he just hasn't seemed like he's at a place yet where we expect him to get to with his game, and is missing the first week of camp. Part of that, maybe. But I also have time for those who would say it's Vlad Nemestikov, and, maybe he's just, and I think we all recognize this was a possibility, that maybe that's asking just a bit too much of him in that role as the quote second line center, if you want to put it that way. Certainly the second line that's expected to provide offense, and that Vlad Nemestikov does a lot of really, really good things on the ice. But I would say, creating offense isn't necessarily near the top of the list of things that he's really good at. And so I do think that there's, maybe Nikolai Ehlers is still trying to find his way with his two line mates there. And I do wonder, Huss, at some point, and I know social media is just filled with this, saying, the easy fix here is flip Ehlers and Connor, and we know Ehlers and Scheifele, and you just mentioned the tying goal the other night, and that was Ehlers and Scheifele kind of working together on that. And, you wonder what Connor and Perfetti and Nemestikov might look like. I just don't think Scott Arniel is there yet, where that's going to happen. I think he's going to give the two lines as he has them some more leash here. And again, part of that is because the team is 3-0. But certainly when we talk about creating offense 5-on-5, I think, if we go a few more games here and there's still not a whole lot happening from those two lines at 5-on-5, that's what I would try first, just to see what that looked like. And then if that didn't work, I mean, again, there's other, that's where you start to have conversations about, is it time to give up Brad Lambert a look there? And would Nemestikov be better served, on that fourth line, and creating even more competition down there? There's a number of ways this could go. I just think certainly the Jets' record is buying them some additional leeway here, but it is an area to keep an eye on for sure. And I'm sure there's some frustration from the likes of especially Perfetti and Ehlers, Nemestikov, you're not expecting him to put up the points nearly as much. He's more of a supporting role with those guys, but clearly that trio has not it has not clicked the way you'd like to see. And I think even the analytics would back that up. Like in all 3 games, that's been the line of the 4 that I think has really kind of struggled the most. And, we'll see if they can get it going this weekend. 2 more home games. Obviously, the Jets have last change. Scott Arniel could get them out, for maybe some more favorable matchups. If we get through this weekend and there's still not a whole lot happening there, I would start to wonder at what point do you, try and maybe move a piece or 2 around to see if it gets a little bit better result.
Mike, we've got a big one on Sunday afternoon. The first WST game, so we should have a good crew up in section 316 for that one. I think it'll be a great crowd, and it would be anyways with Sidney Crosby coming in for the lone visit of the year for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But it's also the celebration of Brian Little. You've been around this team since 2011.
Yeah.
What do you think of when you think of Brian Little and just his place in the annals of Winnipeg Jets history and how important he is to this franchise, to this fan base, and to hockey in Winnipeg?
Yeah, I really think he was the conscience of this team in a lot of ways. He wasn't the loudest guy. He wasn't the guy that did the most interviews he wasn't the face of the franchise at any given time. But he led in a very kind of quiet way on and off the ice. And certainly you hear a lot of young players talk about the example that Brian Little set, and so a guy like Mark Scheifele, who learned from Brian Little, and as Mark Scheifele was getting his feet underneath him as an NHL regular, to be able to learn from Brian Little, his work habits, his demeanor, his temperament, and all of that. I mean, he was the consummate professional, obviously kept himself in great shape and has continued to. The guy's running like triathlons now, I believe, in his retirement. And he was just the kind of guy that every team would love to have a bunch of Brian Littles on their roster. And to me, my biggest takeaway is that he was selfless. Like, this was a guy who, even after he suffered that catastrophic injury, he helped the Jets in a significant way by agreeing to waive the no trade and go to Arizona, which got the Jets out of LTIR hell, which paved the way for making ads like Vlad Nemestikov, Nino Niederreiter, last year Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli. To be perfectly honest, Huss, if Brian Little had said no and the Jets were still having to keep that contract on their books as an LTIR, the bank space would not have been there. The Jets likely wouldn't have been able to add the players that they have over these last 2 trade deadlines. And so I think that was, even in his post-playing days, Brian Little made a massive contribution to the Jets. He was a big part of this community, obviously the transition from Atlanta to Winnipeg, one of the originals. And, I think it's just great that he's going to get his sort of day in the spotlight. I can't think of anyone that deserves it more than Brian Little.
No, you're right. And it's something we've talked about. Marat's spoken about it plenty and written about it. But, for all of what Brian Little did for this city and the organization, even after he was able to play, provided the Jets with one more big assist.
Yeah.
And it pretty appropriate for him. And you know what? The other thing that I when I think of Brian, in a lot of ways, he is sort of emblematic of Winnipeg. I think for a long time he was somewhat overlooked. He was incredibly humble. He went about his business and he took care of it, and didn't need a lot of accolades or recognition. And that, as much as anything, really connected with people. And you know what? I think back to 11, 12, 13, 14, for that generation younger than me, I mean, especially people that were kids at that time, he was right there with the most popular players, because I think that kids really sort of connected with Brian. Like, he wasn't the biggest guy. He certainly wasn't the loudest, But man, when the chips were down, who was out there making plays and always giving his all was Brian Little. And, not only did he resonate with those, but I think he's, in a lot of ways, the way we like to see the best of our city, shown on the ice in the form of one of the players.
I was at Mosaic there covering the Heritage when the Jets played the Flames, and what a great moment that was, where Brian Little scored the OT winner. That was a great setting that night. Like, the snow was starting to fall. It looked like a snow globe there, and there was, of course, a ton of Jets fans in Regina for that game. And we didn't know it at the time, Huss, but that would be like one of the last great moments of Brian Little's career, because of course the horrible on ice accident would happen just a few weeks later, and that would be it. And that moment, and I suspect on Sunday when they pay tribute to him, I'm guessing the video tribute will include that goal and his celebration and being mobbed by his teammates, on the outdoor rink, and just what a great scene that was, and a real feel-good moment for Brian Little, for sure, again, knowing what was going to happen a few weeks later. So you're right. He was kind of an unheralded leader, the ultimate teammate, and in a lot of ways, like you say, emblematic of the people of Winnipeg, and the kind of guy that, Winnipeggers could easily get behind. Nothing flashy, kind of meat and potatoes, blue collar. That was Brian Little. And I'm sure, he was probably rather sheepish, because he's not someone who craves the limelight. Like, even to get this recognition, I'm sure part of him would just have preferred to just kind of stay in the shadows, right? Because that's Brian Little. But I'm just thrilled that, he agreed to this, and the team and him were able to come together, and it should be a great afternoon at the downtown rink. And we'll also be on Rutger watch, Huss. Second straight healthy scratch tonight for Rutger McGroarty.
They're just resting him up for Sunday, Mike.
Yeah. The Penguins, they only have one more game after tonight, which is Friday at home. They won the game the other day with him as a healthy scratch, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens these next two games, because you'd think it would be a no-brainer that they would want to get him in that game. At the same time, if they feel there's 12 better forwards that are performing and the team's having success, it's no guarantee. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming days.
Listen, I'm in on Buffalo tonight. The inter-team practice fight bump.
Oh.
After Rasmus Dahlin and Peyton Krebs went at it. That was weird. That was very weird. By the way, just before we do it, gang in the chat, for fan feedback, I do want to get your thoughts and memories of Brian Little. So especially you B-Litz fans, let us know in the chat just how you look back and remember Brian Little. We're going to get to that in fan feedback for fans first, coming up in a few minutes. We got Buffalo-Pittsburgh tonight, and that game is I'm really interested to see what we get out of Buffalo, as to whether, I was sort of tongue-in-cheek talking about the bump, but sometimes when things blow over, it actually can be a positive. And after a 1-3 start, that's a team that could really use some positive momentum, and maybe they can channel their anger on the opponents as opposed to each other.
Yeah, you don't expect especially your captain to be, taking guys out with low bridge hits during practice, which is what happened yesterday and nearly came to blows. But such is the state right now in Buffalo. So you're right. They may come out guns a-blazing, like they've been shot out of a cannon tonight because of that. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Now, Pittsburgh, they're coming off a nice win the other day to get their record back to 500. But I'll say this. I've watched a lot of the Penguins, including, the first two games by McGroarty. I haven't seen anything that surprised me about his game, Huss. He looks slow. He looks slow by NHL speed. And I'm not surprised. Again, I did a, big, deep feature on him last spring. The thing that everybody, including Rutger McGroarty himself when he was chatting with me, and Barb Underhill, the former Canadian Olympian, who is his personal skating coach, they all said he's got a lot of work to do still on his skating. And I get that they love a lot of the things that he brings. But just watching him, and I don't know if you saw the play the other night when he was playing against the Leafs. I think it was Max Domi.
Winnipeg-born Max Domi?
Oh, boy. I'm sure a lot of Jets fans enjoyed that clip where, like, McGroarty just went crashing into the boards because he was a step too late to catch up to Max Domi. He just looked slow to me. And I don't know how if the Penguins are trying to win right now, I don't know how you have Rutger McGroarty, how that's benefiting him to try and get him up to NHL speed kind of as you go along here. Like, that's where some AHL time and development is not the worst thing. And, Penguins also, he's a healthy scratch right now, Hush. That's with a couple of forwards expected to be in their top 12 that are currently injured. And it sounds like a couple of those guys are getting closer to returning. And it just seems inevitable that at some point here, he's probably going to go down to the AHL. I'm not saying it'll happen by Sunday, but whether or not we get to see him in person this time around or we have to wait remains to be seen. And I'd almost be leaning towards the unlikely at this stage.
Well, I know Remis is working on a vintage WST tribute video. We're probably not going to get a tribute video at Canada Life Center.
Nope.
But we'll have one on WST with some of his highlights during his incredible run as the darling here in Winnipeg before the WWE-style heel turn this summer that ended up with him going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mike, great stuff as always. We'll see you at the rink this weekend. Thanks for doing this.
You bet, Hush. Take care.
Good stuff. All right, great stuff with Mike McIntyre. Fineberg's going to join us in a couple of minutes, but I do want to get to some fan feedback brought to you by our friends at Fans First, your best option for buying and selling tickets with no fees. What you see is what you pay. I've had a number of comments from our listeners that have utilized Fans First either for buying seats or for selling over the last couple of weeks since we've had Fans First on board. Great stuff. Appreciate the great feedback. And as a season ticket holder, when occasionally I've got extra tickets that I haven't accounted for, Fans First, definitely the best platform to sell your seats on if you are in the need to do that, and a great spot to get them as well. All right, going to the chat. Some real good stuff on Brian Little, and I'm not surprised that we would hear it this way. SK, Brian Little is one of the best things that ever happened to the Winnipeg Jets. Isha Boy Bruce, maybe we won't raise a banner for Little, but I will definitely raise a glass. And then in true Isha Boy Bruce fashion said, Little B is a real G, which, if you know Isha Boy, that's one of the highest compliments you can get from him. SK, also, I would love for Little to join the Jets coaching staff. His work ethic, personality, skills, etc. would be a boon for Winnipeg. And Warren Monroe mentioning he got some of his humility from Ducky in Barrie, of course, a Barrie Colt, like Mark Scheifele, with a great connection with Dale Hawerchuk, the late, great Dale Hawerchuk. And just more other great stuff on Brian Little. Gone but never forgotten, and really looking forward to. Darth Skater, was Brian Little part of the crazy flying W goal versus Phoenix? That actually was against the Ducks, the flying W, and that's a great question. Remis, was he part of the flying W?
I thought it was against the Panthers, actually.
Panthers.
I'm watching it. I have it right here.
I think you're right on that. I think
it was the Panthers.
Yes.
And Little is in there. K trivia question: can you name the 5 players in the flying W goal?
I think Perreault is in there.
I can't see. I see. Was he? Is that him? I don't think he was. Little is definitely in there though. No Perreault.
Well, no Perreault. Yeah, he scored the goal. He said, was he the goal scorer?
To
confirm. Lots of talk about this. Yes, Greens. It was against Florida. Okay, pretty sure he scored the flying W.
Little did score the flying W goal. He did score it. I'm sure you can guess who his two line mates were, but the defenseman might be tougher.
What year was that? Was that still during the Ladd era, or was that
Yes.
Scheifele and Wheeler?
March 12, 20, or it was in 2012. I'm not sure the date, but yeah,
Okay,
March
so
March
it was
of
Little and
2012.
Wheeler for sure.
Ladd, Little, Wheeler for sure, and then the defense. One of them was named Green. Said Mark Stewart was on there,
Stu, part
And
of
then-
the flying W.
and then Jeffrey Kohut mentions Randy Jones was in there as well, wearing number 12.
Oh man, what a great memory of Brian Little. We'll have more on Brian Little as we get closer to the weekend, but great stuff from the fans on fan feedback, brought to you by our friends at Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check them out today at fansfirst.ca. All right, we got CFL 110 coming up a little later on. We'll have much more on the Bombers, who are on the bye week right now, but of course, all of our Bomber reports throughout the year brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Blue and Gold, and of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the home of the Blue and Gold, Princess Auto Stadium. Pop by one of two locations, Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, to see everything that Princess Auto has to offer. Of course, Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and featuring the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. You can also, of course, shop online and maybe get some new ideas for another project on that list at princessauto.com. Really appreciate the great support from our friends at Princess Auto. And hey, listen, with Little coming into town this weekend, we will definitely be raising a glass of Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, to Brian Little. Of course, for whiskey drinkers who love the good stuff, there is nothing quite like Canadian Club, the original since 1848. Of course, you can pick up Canadian Club at your local Manitoba liquor marts, and of course, at Princess Auto Stadium, because Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And hey, next time you're popping by your local beer store, keep your eye out for Canadian Club and ginger ale, pre-mixed cocktail in a can. Perfect drink on the go if you maybe want a little change up from a beer. Big thanks to Canadian Club for their support of WST. Also, shout out to the gang at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town, serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they've got you covered. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. Give them a buzz, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And obviously, the leaves have either changed or are gone. The seasons are turning, and fall isn't quite as long as winter. If you are looking into your closet, fellas, and think that you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you're getting married or in a wedding party, talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount when the wedding party gets their suits at F for the big day. Again, they're at 190 Smith Street. Find out more or make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. We are going to talk a little more hockey in a bit. Dan Fink, voice of the Moose, is going to join us. Great start for the Herd in Iowa on the weekend. But right now, let's welcome back to the program my good friend, who I just had a great time hanging out with in Montreal. He, in fact, is wearing some of his President's Cup gear right now. Look at this hat for the victorious Team USA. It is the one and only Jeff Fineberg who joins us now. G, what is up? It was so great to see you and the fellas in Montreal, and great to have you back on the show.
What is up, Huss? Always happy to throw down with you. You see me all right? You hear me all right? Is
You're looking great, and you're sounding even better. It's great to have you on the program. Hey, just quickly, I was getting into your latest, and by the way, gang, you can check out Jeff weekly, along with Pat Mayo and Tim Anderson, with the hands down most entertaining, football pick show that once in a while dives into football picks. How long was this week's episode? Because this felt like one of the great marathons in MMN history.
It was just weird. You're talking about this week's spread pick show.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like there was a lot of ground covered. I'm worried for Tim, actually.
Yeah,
he's down and out on the Jets. Not our Jets, the New York Jets.
It's very un-Tim. He's like quit. And Tim is a lot of things, Huss, but he's not a quitter. Really, like he would be the violinist playing as the ship is sinking. Like he would be the captain demanding the band still play. So that has led to some confusion on my part. Just quick, Tim is a Jets fan and he quit. Like he doesn't care they got Davante Adams. He just wants time off.
Well, let me ask you this.
I am convinced that he'll be back in like at halftime of Sunday Night Football, but he's quit.
Well, and it's strange, and maybe he's just trying to get. And listen, I get it. If you are a longtime New York Jets fan that's seen all sorts of players and whatnot come and go, and now a great like Aaron Rodgers, and basically be sitting exactly where you were last year with Zach Wilson, except for the fact that you'd fire your coach, you could be down. But what are your thoughts on this acquisition of Davante Adams? And does that make the New York Jets still a player in the AFC East? I was with you. I thought they were very much in the mix to win this division. I've expected way more. The thing with the Jets that I can't believe is that their defense is so bad. They've been getting run all over from game one of the season by Mason to Ray Davis, who no one had ever heard of except if you were a fantasy player on Monday.
So I agree. They've essentially been emasculated in their run defense. Josh Allen didn't even have to make a play in that opening drive, and it kind of set the tone for what ended up being a really strange game. I also believe the Jets are still in it, Huss. To win the Super Bowl, I don't think I'm going to go there. To win the division, maybe not, but there is going to be a consortium of really, I don't want to say bad, but flawed football teams competing for those final AFC playoff spots. And I believe the Jets to absolutely be in that mix. I actually think they'll beat Pittsburgh, and then they play the Patriots next week. And that's 4-4. And you're very much in play for a back-end wildcard spot at 4-4.
Yeah, the Tims of the world to be back in on the Jets if they get up to 4-4. What?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't care to defend his takes because we know he'll backtrack. But if I'm a Jets fan, I believe we're getting to 4-4, and I believe the season is still salvageable.
What's a more impactful move yesterday from the NFL? The Davante Adams move to New York with the Jets, or the Bills getting Amari Cooper out of the tire fire that is the Cleveland Browns?
That's a tough one, Huss. I'd say Davante Adams. Although the Bills are desperate for a playmaker, and that I think is going to catch up to him. I don't know if Amari Cooper is that playmaker, but they needed any sort of upgrade in that wide receiver room. I believe Adams will have a bigger impact, though. That then becomes a pretty strong room. Can you still hear me, or is it just my picture that's gone, Huss?
Yeah, you're just frozen, but I can hear you loud and clear. You're actually, there's a bit of moving, but the audio is perfect. So just keep on rolling.
Okay, I apologize. I apologize for that.
Yeah, well, it's no sweat. Once in a while, we all know the ups and downs of our Canadian internet providers that sometimes aren't always well. Listen, while we mentioned the Browns trading Amari Cooper away, I don't know if I've ever seen as big of a disaster as Cleveland is right now. And of course, this all goes back to the Deshaun Watson trade. $230 million, 3 first-round picks, You've got Kevin Stefanski, who's a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner, having to go up looking like he's in a hostage video saying Deshaun Watson is still their quarterback. Is there any out for the Browns on this, or do they just basically play Deshaun Watson until he gets hurt, and maybe then they can move on to Jameis Winston? Because it certainly seems like any logical person would have gone somewhere else at quarterback. I'm not sure ownership is willing to throw in the towel on Deshaun just yet.
Hey, like double speaking now.
Yeah, hold on a sec, Reem. I think is that
it's good now. It's good.
It's good now. Keep on going.
Again, I'm sorry for these tech issues. They've been plaguing me this week, it seems. I just feel terrible for Browns fans. I kind of feel bad for Kevin Stefanski. I almost wish that Stefanski probably wishes he could get fired because he has the equity to get a job in 2 minutes on an open marketplace, a 2-time Coach of the Year. I don't know who is responsible. Like, will Andrew Barry, the GM, survive this? Was Haslam the one that demanded Watson at any cost, or was it the GM who said we should do this? I don't know, but it's worse than the Russell Wilson situation in Denver by a mile, and it'll be a lot harder to get out of, it seems.
Yeah, and I know you guys were kicking this around on the show, but you wonder what this means. I mean, Amari Cooper's gone right now. Do they have to basically blow it all up? I mean, does Myles Garrett go somewhere else? I know you guys talked about this, and it is sort of interesting. You look at a team like the Detroit Lions, who just lost their hoss on the line in Aiden Hutchinson, which is a massive, significant loss to that defense of a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. I'm sure they'll be looking for some help there. I can't imagine Cleveland trading him, but I mean, with the situation that they're in right now and how bad it is, you do wonder if this doesn't get burned down to the ground while they have to wait out the rest of the quote-unquote Deshaun Watson era.
I don't believe they would trade Myles Garrett. I believe the problems, while bad, you still need to keep that player. I made the comparison in the same way we saw Denver keeping Patrick Surtain Jr., despite it seeming like that would be maybe a way for them to fix the problem. All I think they need to do, Huss, is I would bench him. I would almost be willing to swallow whatever the number is in the offseason and just have a team of like undrafted free agents. Like, I mean that. Like, how do you answer for that sort of dead money? Well, you have a lot of guys who make a league minimum. Well, how do you do that? You pretty much 7th round draft picks and beyond. That like on the moment, if trying to solve their problem is where my head is at, but I'm not smart enough. That problem's too big for me.
I mean, it has been thought of by some that, they're just playing him and running him out there until he gets hurt, which is insane. I mean, you don't
but
like.
But you would argue once he gets hurt, it guarantees like next year's salary and stuff, right? Because we've seen that near the end.
The whole thing is guaranteed. Like, that's the thing. The whole thing is guaranteed. That contract screwed the entire NFL and why everyone was so pissed at the Browns for doing it.
But no one else followed suit. Here's the thing. That is an outlier. Right? Lamar, he tried for a minute and he didn't get there. And truth be told, it seems like, Burrow and Herbert didn't attempt to do didn't attempt to go with that ask. And it makes Jimmy Haslam and the Browns seem dumber. That they weren't like, it's right. They didn't even reset anything. This is truly just a one-off, and agents aren't even allowed to use it as a negotiating ploy for their players.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I just can't believe, and I feel bad for Cleveland. I mean, our pal Andy McNamara is all fired up every day. I mean, he's usually a very happy guy. He's living a miserable life right now because of what that football team is doing to him. And listen, there's a few bad teams in the National Football League, as there usually is, but there's nothing like the situation in Cleveland right now. I imagine in your neck of the woods, Chargerville, people are feeling pretty good. I have to admit, I was very concerned about Harbaugh. When I heard that he was leaving the sidelines and was questionable return, I thought he might be on his deathbed or something like that. But lo and behold, he comes back out there, and very impressive win coming off the bye against the rival Broncos. And when you look at the AFC West right now, obviously the Chiefs are on top, but it sort of seems like the Chargers now have maybe separated themselves from both the Broncos and the Raiders right now, of those three teams that were all rebuilding. They seem to be way ahead of where those other clubs are right now, albeit Denver with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could make a case that the Chargers and Broncos aren't too off from one another, Huss. The difference would be one team has a quarterback, and you saw Justin Herbert make a lot of big third downs, spread that ball around in that game. I still don't know what to make of this year's Chargers. I really don't. I'll be perfectly honest with you, Huss. That being said, I know exactly what to make of the future. Because this is a roster that was in a lot of cap hell, that they had to come in and make certain moves and blow up the wide receiver room and just do all different things. And you could just see that they can just play competitive ball, even against the Kansas City Chiefs, with all those injuries and suspensions from Derwin and Bosa being out and those O-line injuries. They play competitive ball. So I'm excited for what it will look like, Huss, in like a year and a half, when the roster is exactly in their vision. The receiving room has been built out, and they have those two all-pro tackles. Like, I'm really excited for that, well, knowing in this moment they seem like they're competitive, and I fully expect to battle for a late wild card spot. Like I mentioned, the Jets, I think, should be a part of as well.
Oh, yeah, with 7 teams, absolutely, it's on the table right now. Hey, before we go over to the NFC, what were your takeaways from the Detroit Lions absolutely humiliating and emasculating the Dallas Cowboys at home on Sunday?
I've gotten very little right this NFL season, Huss. Like, my weekly record picks with Mayo have not been great, but that was my super lock last week, so it felt good to see a game play as dominant as I thought. Well, even that was more dominant than in my mind. I love everything that surrounds that. As a true lover of like the minutia that is little things in the NFL, stuff as simple as Jerry Jones walking into the locker room after a football game like that gets to me. His explosion on local radio guys yesterday get to me. That was a dominant home team that has now just gotten whipped 4 straight games at home, if you include that Packer playoff game last year. Like, that is so bad. I'm not saying their season is done, but it is just such an incredibly flawed football team that showed such little fight.
How likely are the Lions to be a Super Bowl team, do you think, this year? I mean, I think we have to, despite the loss of Hutchinson, and I think they'll try to add someone to hopefully soften that blow. That is a team that I think it has to be right there, especially with the state of the 49ers right now. The Eagles, many of the teams that people thought. I mean, to me, the NFC North is in all likelihood going to be the team that puts forth at least the team that's at home field in the NFC Championship, if not the team that's representing the conference in the Super.
Yeah, Dan Campbell continues to restore the roar. A lovely story. Love a lot of things about that operation there. You wonder that nearly 50 burger that they just put up in Dallas, right in front of, did Ben Johnson just audition for that head coaching job?
Huh.
That's sort of my thought as that game plays out, where we know that head coaching staff will probably be in a year from now. Ben Johnson just put on a show in front of Jerry. So that's sort of like the dot that I'm connecting. Although, yeah, clearly the Lions, 49ers, the rest of those teams in the North should be there battling for it.
Hey, one other thing I got to say, Dan Fink's coming up right away, and we're going to get to the latest on the Moose and some breaking AHL assignment news, which I'm sure you're already talking about in the chat. The Philadelphia Eagles. I've been out on the Eagles since the start. I think Nick Sirianni is a clown. If there was any doubt, he proved it on the weekend, getting into a shouting match with a bunch of fans after they barely beat the Cleveland Browns, we've discussed already. And then bringing his 3 children as human shields to the post-game press conference. How does this guy have a job? Where are you at on Sirianni and the Eagles in general?
It's such a fascinating dynamic. I love the side of it. Like Eagle fans, they're so, they talk such a big game for someone on their own side to be talking back and them to be so sensitive about it. There's that aspect. But yeah, when the media's sort of ready to give it to you and you bring your kid to the podium, I don't back that. Like, kids at the podium should literally be reserved for like when you're wearing a hat that says you've accomplished something. Like, like in those special moments, not in week 7 where the media really has their moment with you and they deserve their fair moment with you. And you're bringing a 6-year-old up there. Like, I don't think that's fair, but I'm not one of these like anti-kids, get the kids out of there. I just think, maybe more of those like celebratory moments, big wins, playoff wins, that sort of thing. Not when those Eagle reporters feel like they got a job to do and you're not letting them do it with that shield you got.
It was so embarrassing for the organization. They obviously talked to him because he is a man of absolutely no humility and had to sort of own it the next day and do a pseudo apology and move on. I think that team cannot stand Nick Sirianni, and Eagles fans themselves saying this is the most unlikable team in the last 50 years, and it is all, I think, because of the head coach. Fineberg, great stuff. Huge laughs this week on the pod. Check out the spread picks at Mayo Media Network with Jeff, Pat, and Tim. You have a good one, man, and once again, great to see you in Montreal. Say hi to the fellas. That was a great time.
All the best. Sorry for that video problem. Remis, he's the best. He sort of got that still in me up quick to save me some embarrassment there. So thanks, boys.
Made it happen. Take it easy, pal. Thanks again for doing this.
Later.
All right. As I mentioned, we as we transition to the Moose and talk AHL, somewhat timely, we do have some breaking news. Rutger McGroarty has been assigned to the American Hockey League by the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, you know what? We got to pour one out for Rutger. Our chance to truly give him the Winnipeg welcome that awaits him when he finally plays in this building. Maybe it'll be against the Moose. Wouldn't that be something? But while we pour one out for him, we may as well pour out Winnipeg's finest little brown jug.
In day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, yeah, we're pouring out a 1919 for Rutger. We will not see him unless something drastic changes in the next few days on Sunday. But great news, Little Brown Jug now available at select Boston Pizzas. And we're doing, as I mentioned right off the top of the show, WST watch party, Jets Red Wings, 2 weeks today, Boston Pizza Polo Park. We'll enjoy some 1919, some famous BP wings, some gourmet pizzas. We'll do a little Jets trivia. We'll crank out a couple contests. So I hope all of you are able to join us. No tickets or anything like that. Just come on down, have a few 1919s with us, and cheer on the Jets. They take on the Detroit Red Wings in a bit of a homecoming for Kyle Connor and, of course, Connor Hellebuyck. Boston Pizza is the place to go for Winnipeg Jet games all season long, and you'll have a chance to win a trip for 2 to Boston to see the Jets and the Bruins at TD Gardens. You'll be spinning the BP prize wheel. We'll have great BP food and swag from Royal Sports as well, and get in to win that grand prize trip for 2, which includes airfare, deluxe hotel, game tickets to the Jets, Bruins at TD Gardens, and BP is throwing in tickets to the Celtics and Bulls the night before. Watch every game this season at Boston Pizza, and you could win. And listen, it's only appropriate that Boston's teamed up with Royal Sports for their Jet swag for their promos, because when it comes to grabbing gear for your favorite team, there's nowhere like Royal Sports. The biggest Jet section in town, packed with hooks, hats, hoodies, toques, jerseys of all styles and sizes, you name it. Royals got it. Tons of Bomber gear as we get ready for a home playoff game. The latest in the NFL merch, and of course, all of the National Hockey League, in addition to being Winnipeg's #1 hockey superstore for over 40 years. Pop by and see them. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well, at Royal Sports Pembina, for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Well, quite topical. We were mentioning Rutger getting sent to the American Hockey League because our Manitoba Moose had a heck of a start on the road this weekend. Dan Fink, voice of the Moose, joins us now from the Hockey for All Center. And Finker, heck of a start for the boys down in Iowa against the Wild on the weekend. How was it?
Yeah, first time since 2011, Huss, that the Moose have been off to a 2-0 start, and that goes all the way back to when they were in St. John's. So traditionally have been kind of a split team on that opening weekend, and considering I think it's 4 teams that are 2-0 and 2 more teams that are 1-0, it's pretty common for the rest of the league. So big start for the Moose. Always love to get that road record off to a hot start. Saw some great debuts for a couple of rookies, and overall you pick up 2 big wins, 4 points. Those add up as the season goes on, especially if you can claim a bunch of them when you're still kind of figuring out how everything's going to work as it kind of goes the first few weeks in the AHL.
Well, speaking of rookies and individuals that had big weekends, I mean, we'll talk about the guys that, were the talk of Jets training camp in a minute. But I want to start with Dom DiVincentis. Like, I really think that he ended up being the big winner, at least in the short term, when Kaapo Kähkönen got picked up off of waivers. I mean, if we can learn anything with the way the Jets handled Thomas Milic last year, he played a ton and played very well in Norfolk in the East Coast League for about 60% of the season, or half the season, before coming to Winnipeg and then establishing himself in the A. It sort of seemed like that was the likely path for DiVincentis, and then Kähkönen gets picked up. So you got this incredibly young goalie tandem. Milic gets the win in game number 1, and then DiVincentis comes in. First game as a professional, 37 saves on 39 shots. I mean, what a way to start the season for a young man that probably wasn't even sure as to where he'd play his first game.
Yeah, he got his opportunity and he ran with it. I mean, that's all you can ask for a young player as the organization and as the young player yourself. I mean, I was saying on the broadcast, you always hope the goalie debuts go well. When a forward or defenseman makes a debut, if things don't go amazing, you generally don't notice, or they'd have to do something pretty catastrophic for you to notice. If the goaltender has a bit of an off day in his debut, you really notice, and that's a tough way to start your pro career. Well, everything worked out for Dom DiVincentis in Iowa there. I mean, you look at the volume that he got, and talking to him after the game, he said, you know what, it just helped him settle in. He didn't have time to think about everything. He was just stopping pucks, and you know what, the defense did a great job in front of him, clearing away most of those rebounds, because there were some up for grabs. Iowa was doing a real good job of putting pucks in tough spots, in his pads, off his blocker, just making life difficult and crashing the net. But the defense did a much better job in game number 2, just clearing out the garbage, giving their goaltender a little bit of space to work. And while it wasn't like he was diving all over the place and making 10-bell saves, he was just solid. He was in position. He was making the stops, and there were some tough ones, make no mistake, along the way. But 37 of 39, when you're getting that kind of volume as a goaltender and you're making that amount of saves, that's not too bad. You'll always take the .950 save percentage, Huss.
Yeah, no doubt. And listen, most importantly for him, a win. I know, people will look at the numbers and all that, but when you get your first chance to get out there with a brand new team, you want to come out with a victory, and he did that. And as I said, he was part of it, but overall, so many of the young players in this organization had big weekends. And, my brother pays very close attention to all the games, and he's updating me on, and he was texting me through. It's like, oh, Elias is having a great weekend. And I mean, for his first 2 games in the American Hockey League, much of what we saw in Jet training camp seems to have carried off right out of the gate. Tell us about the first weekend for Elias Salomonsson as a Moose, with 1 goal and 2 assists, plus 4 in the 2 wins on the road.
Yeah, you're always curious to see how it goes once you get to actual regular season play. And I know I kind of talk about these early season AHL games. You're still trying to figure everything out. But even from NHL preseason to AHL regular season, there's still a jump. I think folks miss that sometimes, that you'll see players maybe perform very well in Jets preseason or an NHL preseason. They're all over the place, but it's a very chaotic game. There's not a lot of structure. Guys are trying to accomplish different things. You get to AHL regular season, all of a sudden that structure starts to lock in and the game gets tougher. But for Salamonson, I think when you're kind of a maybe defensive leaning defenseman, that structure certainly helps. And you know what? He settled right in, and he was with a partner in Simon Lundmark, who, again, in addition to Salamonson and playing his first American hockey game, Lundmark last season played one game on the left side, and that's what he was doing. He's lining up with Salamonson as offside, trying to develop that part of his game. So certainly some feeling out for both of them, but they just kept everything boring. And for defensemen, I think for the most part, unless you are one of those end-to-end guys, like to reference last season, Kyle Capobianco, somebody like that, that's what you want. You want to keep things calm and simple. And when you go to Elias's first AHL goal, that's what it was. It was a good, simple play on the power play, got to the middle of the ice, let go a really heavy wrister that found its way through, and just overall a simple weekend. And that's what you want for those guys to really settle in, get comfortable. And you know what? Game 2 was a little more choppy for everybody, and he still was able to kind of manage his way through that. So great to see those early returns on success for both those young players.
What a world we're living in with the scarcity of right shot defensemen. And last year, I mean, with the Jets, we're seeing guys on the left side moving over to play their opposite side, to have two righties play together with such bright futures. And stay tuned. We had a great sit down on one of the many interviews we did with Moose players. Simon Lundmark was one of my favorites. We're going to have that leading into next week's home opener. So stay tuned to Winnipeg Sports Talk.
It's funny.
That.
Sorry, Huss. It's funny you say that because, as you know, I was kind of cruising in and cruising out throughout that day, and I got to pop by and listen to about a minute or two of Simon's interview, and I actually texted Colin Peterson. I said, Lundmark is absolutely crushing this interview. So yeah, definitely don't want to miss that one. It was real good.
He was great. I mean, listen, thanks again for the hospitality that day. We had such a great time, and it was before the season started, to be able to get a chance that you don't really have during the regular season to sit down with a bunch of players. We played the Parker Ford one already, and people absolutely loved it. And we're going to ramp those up heading into a big weekend next week as the Moose get ready for their home opener on the 26th of October. But back to last weekend, I mean, people will kill me if I don't get right to it. Brad Lambert, Nikita Chibrikov, they were the talk of training camp. They were right down there to the end. They seemingly are very, very close to pushing into the NHL. Man, those two didn't wait to get going this weekend. A goal and 3 assists for Chibrikov, 3 assists for Brad Lambert in the 2 wins. You saw a lot of those players take huge steps last season, especially last year as the team battled back from a really ugly situation after their extended losing streak. And it seemed like, well, I mean, I'll ask you, I mean, even better confidence and more push right out of the gate after their training camp experience in year 2 with the Moose?
I think overall you saw kind of what you would expect to see from those guys. I think the mission for those guys at the AHL level is to be dominant players. That's where you want them to get there. Did they dominate all weekend? Probably not. It's tough to do so that first weekend. But for Chibrikov, he was in the mix, and that's what you love about Nikita Chibrikov's game, right? He's feisty, he's up in it, he's running into guys, he's cannonballing all over the ice, he's getting to fun areas, he's creating offense just with having skill blended with that style of game. And he was in the middle of it, and he was rewarded for it offensively, and was out there at that key part of the game to be there, to be in that position to get that empty net goal as well, to get his first of the season. So that's great. And for Lambert, it was a lot of fun. In the first game, they had him with Axel Jonsson-Fjällby and Dominic Toninato, so a couple of veteran players. And watching him and Axe fly up and down the ice was all sorts of fun. And Dominic Toninato is just such a heady player. He just knows where to get those guys the puck. Things changed up in the second game. The coaching staff was looking to push some buttons to create some offense, and it worked in the third period. So those lines kind of got got jumbled. But especially the opening goal of game number 2 there in Iowa, you just saw the speed. Good little chip off the wall from Max Leonson and Fialbi to get Lambert moving up the ice. Tony Nato was able to catch up, and it was a 2-on-1, and then all of a sudden it was a 2-on-0 because Lambert just torched right past the defenseman anyway and tucked it back across for a tap in. So those guys are a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be interesting to watch how they develop their game to that next level, because there's always another level to get to, Huss. And as I will always say, and I think what are we, 2 weeks ago that we were chatting, I'm here to preach patience in all things, and looking forward to those guys kind of taking the fine bits. We talked a bit while you guys were doing your interviews. I was doing a few myself, and we were kind of taking the theme of development. And it's one thing to get that 10% better up to 90% from 80%, and it just gets harder and harder every little step of the way, closer to 100% as you try to maximize your potentials. So you get further into the minutia of your game, you get further into the details, and I think those guys are really pushing, and they're on a mission this year to push themselves as far as they can go.
What did Coach Morrison have to say about his team's first couple games? And anyone else you want to, kind of mention that, a real strong start to the season, helping the team come back with 4 points from Iowa?
Well, I guess I'll start there first. I mean, it was pretty cool to see Mason Shaw get into those games. I mean, he spent the entirety of his professional career with Minnesota and Iowa. He played 197 games for the Wild. Pretty beloved player in that town. There was a great tribute to him when he was there, and the crowd just gave it to him in spades. And he picked up a big assist on the Chibrikov empty net and then scored the game winner the next game. So as somebody who's watched Mason Shaw torch the Moose, I think his first game against Manitoba in his career, he actually picked up the first points of his career, had a goal and 2 assists. So to see that spun around to the other side was kind of refreshing. So you know what, a guy in a veteran role that's going to be looked upon to be a leader and provide offense for his team. It was good to see him pick up a goal and assist. Dominic Toninato scored in each game, of course. So that's big to see him get rolling right off the bat. So Parker Ford as well had a really good first game, picked up a goal and assist, including first shorthanded goal of his career. So you like a lot of what you saw from the Moose. I mean, everybody was involved, and that's kind of an important thing. Mark Lewinsky gets a goal as well. Danny Zhilkin had a great end-to-end rush to create that goal for Lewinsky. So lots of things went well for the Moose, and I think to a man, they all understood just how much they have to work on. And they're going into Grand Rapids this weekend and looking up and down that roster. That is a tough team right now, especially absolutely loaded with goaltenders as well. So it's going to be tough at Van Andel. It always is, no matter where that team is in the standings. And it looks like they got a pretty good roster. So that's going to be a tough battle. But I think for Mark Morrison and the coaching staff, they, much like the players, happy with the 2 points, like a lot of what they did, but understand that there's a lot of things to work on. And once you get those first games under your belt, for the coaching staff, they're really able to dial in with video and that game action beyond what they were able to see in things like exhibitions. So couple of practices here this week before getting on the plane tomorrow to head down to Grand Rapids, and we'll see what strides the teams take, because it's always interesting to watch the games that first weekend onto the second weekend and see how much improvement there is.
Yeah, Friday night, Saturday night, 6 o'clock Winnipeg time, Moose at Grand Rapids. You can check the games on Flow Hockey. How's that changed at all this year? I mean, AHL TV now under the Flow Hockey umbrella?
Yeah, so I mean, AHL TV was always run by the folks at Flow Hockey. It was just kind of its own separate entity. So it's been brought into the fold. So while I will acknowledge there is certainly a price increase depending on how you were a subscriber before, of course, Moose season ticket holders and Moose package members get that as a benefit. So it's actually great value for them. You get access to so much more. And I think one of the best benefits of Flow Hockey is being able to not only watch the Moose, but you can get Norfolk Admirals games as well, because you're covered in the whole ECHL. So folks have an opportunity to really take advantage of seeing the whole developmental pipeline for the Jets in action, and some of the great players with the Norfolk Admirals. So that's a great opportunity. But I should note, one of the games come up here, and I'm going to stall for just 2 seconds here while I make sure I have the right game, Huss, because I wouldn't want people looking for it on the wrong day. And of course, my X account is tossing all sorts of ads at me right now. Saturday night, that game is a free view, so you don't actually need an account for Flow Hockey. You can watch the game on Facebook, on X, or on YouTube. So that game is going to be readily available for everybody to.
That's this Saturday against Grand Rapids. Rapids?
This Saturday against Grand Rapids.
Oh, and that's perfect. That's the night that the Jets are off, too. So, I mean, you got, Jets, Hellebuyck night on Friday, free view of the Moose Grand Rapids game on Saturday, and then we're back at it at 2 p.m. on Sunday for the visit of the Pittsburgh Penguins, celebrating the great career of Brian Little. And then the Jets hit the road and the Moose come back. And speaking of 2 p.m. games, we know how popular 2 p.m. games are with the Manitoba Moose and the fan base. And home opener, 2 p.m. a week Saturday, the 26th, and then right back at it for another matinee on the 27th at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, finally. I think there's 2 home openers on the October 26th. Those are the last 2 in the American Hockey League. I think the Moose have the second last one, so it'll be great to get home. It's always nice to have those kind of practice runs in some ways to get the team meshed on the road before opening at home. But certainly excited to get the home portion of this 25th season underway. There's going to be a blanket giveaway for the first 2,000 fans through the doors. Of course, you get a chance to see all the new game production elements that Huss, you got a bit of a preview on that production day, and everything Colin Paterson's been cooking up. We've already seen some of the changes in the rink with the Jets sound system and stage, things like that. You guys also got a sneak peek at the new kind of accuracy shooting experience that the Moose will have on their concourse as well. So there's going to be more interactive activities on the concourse for when the kids need to kind of get up and do some moving around. And there's just, it's, exciting to be part of this 25th season. I mean, going through the 20th season anniversary now, because apparently I'm getting older and older, Huss, which I guess I don't need to. Now you're just going to say, oh, yeah, I figure been there since day one. But you know what? It's pretty cool to be a part of these milestones for the team overall and to get to share that with everybody. And this week at Hockey for All Center, we've been doing a whole pile of alumni interviews with Winnipeg Jets, and that's been really cool. So there's a lot of cool content coming, and it all kicks off on that October 26th, 2 p.m. game. So be sure to be there. Welcome the boys home from hopefully a very successful opening 4-game road trip. And then the very next day, there's the Hockey 101 game, which is a pretty cool initiative that we've kicked off this year, really trying to put the focus on welcoming new fans to the game, because we're always trying to grow the game. We love hockey. We want to share it with as many people as possible. It can be a little inaccessible sometimes when you're watching it and you haven't grown up with the game. So there'll be rules, explanations, things like that. And it never hurts to get a refresher early on in the season, because the amount of times that myself as a broadcaster have to scratch my head and go, what's the right call here? Or fans are going, this is completely madness. Well, it's in the rules. So maybe we need to all get a refresher every once in a while. But at the very least, if you can't make it to that home opener game on the Saturday, there's the Sunday 2 p.m. as well. So.
Listen, that's great. If you got some friends or some people that might be new to Winnipeg or new to Canada, and you want to show them, what our game is all about, it sounds like a great initiative to get into it right off the start of the season. And of course, haven't even had the home opener yet. Plenty of time. If you want to get some season tickets for the company, you want to get a flex pack or a mini pack, I know the good folks at the Moose would love to take care of you. And as Dan mentioned, we'll also get that free access to watch all the games throughout the year as well. Go to moosehockey.com for more information on all of that. Finker, thanks for taking the time. A fun conversation after such a great opening weekend. We'll wish the boys luck out in Grand Rapids. Look forward to watching the game on Saturday in between Jet games. And then, of course, we'll talk to you and the gang next week as we get fired up for 2 o'clock Saturday, October 26th for the Manitoba Moose home opener. You have a good one, buddy. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks a lot, Huss. Go Mets.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, listen, we'll get to that Mets-Dodgers game coming up when we hit the cool bet lines. We do have CFL 110 coming up in about 15 minutes. But I've got to get Remis in here because, Reem, how are you taking this news that Rutger has been assigned to the American Hockey League? What does this do to our plans for the long-awaited WST tribute video?
Man, I just started pulling up all of our old interviews. Like, I had videos of when he was picked, his posts, comments about how excited he was to be selected by such a great organization in the Winnipeg Jets. And now I'm torn. Can we play this? He's not coming here. I think we might have to shelve this. Maybe there's a last minute call up. Like, someone could get hurt tonight and he's the next guy in, or they feel that he's not ready. So I posted. No, I normally
Does it get funnier, the fact that we do a tribute video and he's been sent to the American Hockey League?
Does it get? Maybe. I guess
vote in the chat on that, please.
We can still make it. I mean, we can still make the video. I have all the clips ready. That was what's going on during Mike. I left my microphone on. I started listening to old interviews of you and Rutger. And, I also, on our Winnipeg Sports Talk social media, Instagram, Facebook, follow us on there. Links are in the description. I don't usually post transactions, players getting sent down to the AHL of other teams that aren't the Jets. But I knew that people, anytime we open the show, there's comments about him. So I did post that. It's already blowing up in the comments on our Instagram page. already a ton of comments. So if you want to see what people are saying about that, I mean, over 100 likes in 20 minutes.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, we started yesterday's show coming out of a long weekend with 2 amazing OT wins by the Jets, a massive game for the Bombers that didn't go their way. And half of the people in chat were talking about McGroarty got scratched last night. I mean, it's, for better or worse, it's still a topic. And I don't think Jet fans have entirely had their closure. I think we thought that would be the case on Sunday. It will just put it off for a year. But in a way, Remis, I am sort of happy. Happy. I mean, listen, I'm not wishing the guy ill will or anything like that, whatever. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what Braden Yeager does in his NHL career here. I think the Jets made the best of an unfortunate situation. As excited as many of us were to see Rutger play for the Jets, that wasn't going to happen. He's gone. However, that may have made Sunday a little bit of a sideshow, and I'm sure we would have been front and center involved in it. Now it's going to be about the Penguins, the Jets, Sidney Crosby, but most importantly, the guest of honor signing a one-day contract to retire a Winnipeg Jet, the one and only Brian Little.
Yeah, I think that's going to be awesome. I'm curious if there's going to be any special guests in attendance for that. The Jets always do these pregame ceremonies so well. The Sam Gagner 1,000th game, Blake Wheeler 1,000th, those certainly come to mind. Paul Stastny as well. So will there be, guests? I'm curious, Brian Little.
Has Andrew Ladd been back to Winnipeg since he left?
I don't think so.
In any sort of, well, anyways, it would be pretty cool to see him there. I mean, let's face it, when you think of Brian Little, you think of Andrew Ladd and you think of Blake Wheeler.
Of course.
And again, but I know you're not going to be here for the next couple of days, so I wanted to give you a chance to sort of talk about Brian.
I got my Little jersey. I'm a big Little guy. I got him very late one year in my fantasy league, and he put out an amazing season, and I took the title that year. So Brian Little will always be a member of the Remos Hockey Club Hall of Fame for my championship season, but he's always a very reliable player, and, he came into the league, he was wearing number 10, switched to 18 to honor and respect for Dale Hawerchuk, even though, according to the official NHL guide and record book, different franchise, but obviously Dale meant so much to the city. And again, he anchored the first line, second line, memorable trio with Ladd, Little, Wheeler for so many years. He's up there for franchise leaders. He's starting to get past now, but always will be a member of the Winnipeg Jets for sure. And, we brought a consistent game every night. And first, memories, first hat trick. He had the flying W goal. He had the, scored in the playoffs. He had the Mosaic Stadium winner as well. So, yeah, lots to remember of Brian Little. And it reminds you of those early days of the Jets 2.0 era as well.
Yeah, I mean, and those were amazing days for the city, for hockey fans here. And, Brian Little is such a big part of it, all the way till his final goal as a Jet, which many of us saw in person in Regina at Mosaic Stadium. Another win for Winnipeg at Mosaic Stadium. You got to love it. Of course, against the Calgary Flames in that Heritage Classic. Certainly a memory that I will never forget. So we'll have more on Brian Little as we get closer to the weekend. Of course, Friday, the special the special guest, if you will, is the Vezina Trophy, courtesy of one Connor Hellebuyck for Hellebuyck night, then into what's going to be a great afternoon. Don't forget, even without Rutger, we'd love to have you join us for the Jets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Should be a great one. Getting a chance to see Sidney Crosby in all of his legendary glory. And who knows, if we're lucky, we might be looking at a team on the verge of going 5-0 if they can get the job done against the San Jose Sharks on Friday night first up. But again, if you just popped in, Rutger will not be in attendance, barring some sort of last-minute change. He has been assigned to the American Hockey League by the Pittsburgh Penguins. All right, before we get out so we can get going with CFL 110 with Jeff Hamilton, which is coming up next, let's get to the lines tonight. And Finker said, let's go Mets. We've got a big game tonight. Game 3, Citi Field, back in the Big Apple. The LA Dodgers and the New York Mets going at it. Luis Severino on the hill for the Mets. Walter Buehler for the Dodgers. This is basically a pick 'em. Dodgers are minus 111 on the money line. The Mets minus 105. Total for the game is 7.5. Yankees up 2-0 on the Guardians. That one shifts back to Cleveland tomorrow. Yankees minus 111 faves and the Guardians minus 105. Series price right now in the Dodgers-Mets series. Mets, after getting the split, plus 135. Dodgers still a big favorite at minus 161. And obviously the Yankees a heavy fave in the ALCS. As far as the NHL goes tonight, 4 games. We've got the Buffalo Sabres plus 102 in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. Penguins minus 120. The Leafs at home. Austin Matthews still looking for his first goal. Leafs minus 179. The Kings with Big Save Dave in the pipes tonight. Kings plus 151. Colorado 0-3. Looking to get their first win of the season. They got to take on the Boston Bruins. Bruins plus 113. Colorado minus 133. And Utah HC, the artist formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes. They're in Anaheim to take on the Ducks. Utah minus 149. The Ducks plus 127. If you go over to the combo cards right on the front page of CoolBet, you'll see our Lock Shop Partner Parlay. We are going for the teammate fight bump for the Buffalo Sabres. Rasmus Dahlin went at it yesterday with Peyton Krebs. Let's go Buffalo plus 102. We've got Utah to beat the Ducks. And we're going to, just because the Avalanche have had such a hard time keeping the puck out of their net, we've got the Bruins over under goals in regulation over 2.5. That one's boosted up to plus 525. So jump on that when you can if you want to ride with us. Some other great exclusives and combos available for you at CoolBet. Join us tomorrow and Friday in the Lock Shop. Of course, Friday, the big best bets day for the National Football League. If you haven't played a CoolBet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, that is going to do it for us. But don't go anywhere, because we will take a very brief time out, switch over to the next stream, which is, of course, CFL 110. Jeff Hamilton and I going over what happened last week, what this means for the Bombers, for the Riders, for the BC Lions, as the playoff picture becomes clear in the Canadian Football League. CFL 110 is next. Thanks again to Mike McIntyre, to Jeff Fineberg, to Dan Fink for jumping on with us today, and of course to all of the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Thanks for hanging with us. But if you're with us live, don't go anywhere. CFL 110 is next. And for all of you WST listeners that are checking out the podcast, put in CFL 110 wherever you get your favorite pods. Hit the sub and get the latest on the 3-down game with us right here on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. Thanks for being with us today, folks.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.